Sophia Reynolds had always known this moment would come, yet nothing could prepare her for the sharp intake of air that seemed to ripple through the grand ballroom as she stepped past the polished marble floors and towering crystal chandeliers. "They'll see me now," she whispered under her breath, a mantra rather than a statement, as the hum of conversation wrapped around her like a silken cloak. The gala was in full swing, golden light bouncing off emerald and sapphire gowns, but Sophia's eyes were locked ahead, scanning the crowd for a familiar figure. Ethan Carter, her ex-husband, stood near the bar, a shadow of control and past arrogance, unaware that the woman he once thought broken was now the center of her own orbit. Her heels clicked softly against the marble, a rhythmic declaration of presence, each step deliberate, measured, imbued with confidence earned through years of silent perseverance. Alexander Blackwell, the CEO whose very reputation commanded attention, stood just beyond the circle of sparkling light, his posture relaxed yet undeniably commanding. Sophia felt the surge of power not in his proximity, but in the quiet knowledge of her own transformation. The gallery she had rebuilt from scratch, the networks she had quietly forged, and the self-respect she had painstakingly nurtured were the unseen but palpable armor she now wore. Conversations swirled around her like currents, laughter ringing like delicate chimes, yet all she perceived were the subtle shifts in attention, the involuntary glances, the way the room's energy seemed to bend subtly toward her presence. She adjusted the silk of her dress, the emerald fabric catching the ambient light, and let herself exhale, feeling for the first time in years a release from the tension that had gripped her for so long. Ethan's gaze caught hers fleetingly, a flicker of recognition, a silent acknowledgment of the woman before him, and though he attempted to mask the shock with composure, Sophia could sense the tautness in his shoulders, the pause in his habitual confidence. Alexander smiled, a quiet, knowing curve of the lips, and offered a subtle nod, signaling partnership without fanfare, a private declaration of alignment that needed no words. The air seemed to hold its breath, the murmurs of the gathering fading into a soft backdrop as Sophia stepped forward, every movement a statement, every glance a reinforcement of the truth she carried. She was no longer a shadow of her past, no longer a figure defined by others' expectations, but a woman whose presence commanded respect, whose achievements demanded acknowledgment, and whose quiet authority was about to unfold before everyone who had once underestimated her. And as the crystal lights refracted across the ballroom, casting glimmers across her path, Sophia knew this was only the beginning, a prelude to a night that would realign every perception, leaving echoes of surprise and admiration lingering long after the first toast. Sophia moved through the crowd with the grace of someone who had learned to command attention without demanding it, each step measured, purposeful, a quiet assertion of the power she now carried. The soft murmur of conversation blended with the clinking of glasses, a backdrop to the inner symphony of thoughts that ran through her mind, recalling every slight, every dismissal, and every night spent questioning her worth. Alexander Blackwell walked beside her, not overshadowing, but complementing her presence, a subtle partnership that spoke volumes without uttering a single word. She remembered the long hours spent rebuilding her gallery, the countless meetings with clients who had once overlooked her potential, the meticulous planning that transformed her vision into a thriving enterprise. Each memory was a brick in the fortress of confidence she had constructed, a shield against the shadows of doubt and betrayal. The chandeliers above refracted light into a kaleidoscope that seemed to dance around her, highlighting the emerald sheen of her gown, the subtle curve of her smile that hinted at triumph and satisfaction. She approached a cluster of familiar faces, exchanging polite greetings and confident nods, her voice steady, articulate, carrying the authority of someone who had reclaimed her narrative. Ethan lingered at the edge of the room, his gaze fixed, trying to decipher the woman before him, grappling with the realization that the person he thought he knew no longer existed in her previous form. Alexander introduced Sophia to a few prominent figures in the art and business world, and each introduction was met with warmth, curiosity, and admiration, reinforcing the sense of legitimacy and influence she now embodied. Sophia felt a surge of satisfaction, not from the eyes of Ethan or anyone else, but from the knowledge of her own resilience, the quiet power of a life rebuilt with intelligence, strategy, and unwavering determination. The room seemed to contract around her, conversations fading into the periphery as she navigated the social currents with ease, her laughter light but genuine, echoing a freedom and self-possession that had been absent for far too long. In fleeting moments, she caught Ethan's reflection in the polished marble surfaces, the tension in his posture, the hesitation in his movements, and a small, private smile touched her lips. It was not gloating, not triumphalism, but a serene recognition that she had transcended the constraints of the past, that her life, her achievements, and her dignity were hers alone to define. The golden glow of the chandeliers, the subtle fragrance of polished wood and linen, the soft cadence of distant music, all combined to create a tableau in which Sophia was the unspoken focal point, commanding attention not through spectacle, but through presence, poise, and the invisible weight of earned authority. And as the evening continued to unfold, a sense of anticipation thrummed in the air, the promise that every glance, every acknowledgment, and every whispered remark was part of the delicate architecture of a moment that was just beginning, a prelude to revelations and encounters that would shift the balance in ways that only she could orchestrate. Sophia Reynolds felt the subtle shift in the room as Alexander Blackwell guided her to the center of attention, the soft illumination from the chandeliers casting a golden halo around them, accentuating the confidence in her posture and the quiet authority in her gaze. Conversations paused, glances lingered, and for a fleeting moment, the entire gala seemed to orbit around the presence she now commanded. Ethan Carter stood frozen near the bar, the tension in his shoulders visible even from a distance, his mind racing to reconcile the woman he once dismissed with the radiant figure before him. Sophia smiled lightly, a serene, almost imperceptible gesture that carried the weight of years spent reclaiming her life, and felt the satisfaction of being fully seen for who she had become rather than who she had been. Alexander introduced her to a prominent philanthropist, their handshake firm and respectful, a public acknowledgment of her influence and the networks she had cultivated with diligence and discretion. As they moved across the marble floor, every step resonated with the echo of triumph earned through perseverance, the soft swish of her emerald gown a rhythmic punctuation to the narrative of her resurgence. Sophia allowed herself a brief glance at Ethan, noting the tightening in his jaw, the subtle narrowing of his eyes, the silent acknowledgement that the balance of power had irrevocably shifted. She recalled the quiet nights spent reviewing contracts and curating exhibitions, the meticulous planning of gallery openings, the careful cultivation of relationships that had once seemed out of reach, and understood how far she had come from the shadow of doubt and disappointment. The room hummed with the low murmur of admiration, the subtle rustle of silk and the clinking of crystal glasses marking the passage of time. Yet Sophia felt anchored in a world she had constructed with her own hands, every interaction reinforcing the legitimacy of her presence and the credibility of her achievements. Alexander's discreet, supportive nod reminded her of the partnership that now defined her social and professional standing, a silent signal that the respect she commanded was recognized and shared. As they paused near the grand staircase, Sophia exchanged a few words with a group of influential art collectors, her voice calm, articulate, imbued with the self-assurance of someone who had endured setbacks, learned from them, and emerged with a vision and a sense of purpose that demanded attention. The ambient lighting reflected in the polished surfaces, the fragrance of polished wood and subtle floral arrangements combining to create an atmosphere of understated elegance in which Sophia's presence became both natural and magnetic. In this moment, every detail, the measured cadence of her steps, the clarity of her gaze, the gentle lift of her chin, spoke to the resilience and authority she had cultivated, an unspoken statement to the room that she was no longer defined by the past, that her achievements were undeniable, and that the respect she now received was the result of her unwavering dedication and strategic grace. And as the evening unfolded, with laughter, conversation, and the quiet admiration of those around her, Sophia understood that the real story was just beginning, a series of revelations and acknowledgments that would cement her presence and redefine the perceptions of all who had once underestimated her. Sophia Reynolds paused near the grand staircase, allowing the warm light to catch the subtle shimmer of her gown, and felt the quiet satisfaction of commanding a room without raising her voice or seeking attention. The ambient music softened as conversations shifted, curious glances following her every move, and she noticed how effortlessly she navigated the intricate social currents, her presence simultaneously magnetic and composed. Alexander Blackwell offered a reassuring nod, acknowledging not only her influence but the strategic poise she displayed, a silent confirmation of the balance they maintained together. Sophia engaged a small group of gallery patrons and philanthropists, her speech measured and thoughtful, every word carrying the weight of expertise and experience, projecting confidence that was built on years of dedication and resilience rather than fleeting charm. From the corner of her eye, she observed Ethan Carter, standing stiffly, his usual casual self-assurance replaced by an unmistakable tension, as he tried to maintain composure while assessing the transformation that time and persistence had wrought. Memories of the countless evenings spent analyzing market trends, coordinating exhibitions, and fostering relationships surfaced, each recollection reinforcing the invisible scaffolding of her current stature. The soft murmur of laughter and the clinking of crystal glasses formed a backdrop against which Sophia's subtle gestures and expressions resonated with authority and charm. As she moved across the ballroom, her emerald dress swaying with controlled elegance, the light glinting against the crystal chandelier, the realization that she had become a figure of genuine influence and admiration settled within her with quiet power. Alexander briefly adjusted his cufflinks, a small, practiced motion, and she interpreted it as both support and recognition, an unspoken signal that their collaboration and shared vision were fully realized in the room. Sophia felt a gentle thrill at seeing her efforts acknowledged not through overt praise, but through the natural deference and attention her presence inspired, the ease with which people approached, listened, and engaged with her forming a tangible testament to her growth. She exchanged a few words with a young collector, her tone calm, her gestures deliberate, conveying both warmth and professionalism, while simultaneously sending a subtle message that her sphere of influence extended far beyond the expectations of those who had once doubted her. Ethan's eyes flickered with disbelief and something akin to regret, though Sophia did not dwell on it. Her attention remained on the present, on the network of relationships she had carefully nurtured and the opportunities that awaited her. The chandeliers overhead reflected light into the corners of the room, illuminating her path and casting delicate shadows that added to the sense of depth and dimensionality, emphasizing the contrast between the woman she had become and the echo of the self that once felt powerless. Each measured breath, each graceful step, each interaction carried the weight of her journey, and as she looked across the ballroom, sensing the subtle shifts in attention and awareness, Sophia understood that this was the moment when years of persistence, courage, and intelligence converged into a singular, undeniable presence, setting the stage for the revelations and confrontations that were yet to come. Sophia Reynolds felt the subtle pulse of anticipation as she reached the center of the ballroom, the ambient light reflecting off the polished marble and glinting against her emerald gown, casting an almost ethereal glow around her. Alexander Blackwell's presence beside her was both grounding and empowering, a silent affirmation of the partnership and trust they had built over countless hours of shared ambition and vision. The murmurs and glances of the gathered guests seemed to settle around her, a mix of curiosity and admiration that Sophia had learned to interpret as recognition of her hard-earned authority. She moved with a quiet confidence, engaging seamlessly with collectors, philanthropists, and patrons, each exchange polished, deliberate, and infused with the subtle elegance that now defined her presence. Across the room, Ethan Carter remained a study in tense composure, his eyes tracking Sophia with a mixture of disbelief, lingering attachment, and the faintest trace of envy, as though he were only beginning to understand the depth of her transformation. Sophia's mind flickered momentarily to the hours she had dedicated to rebuilding her gallery, cultivating meaningful connections, and refining her expertise, the invisible scaffolding of effort and persistence now visible to all who witnessed her presence. She allowed a gentle smile, measured and serene, to touch her lips as she exchanged words with a prominent board member, every gesture precise, conveying warmth, authority, and the unmistakable aura of a woman in control of her destiny. The soft clinking of crystal glasses and low murmur of conversation faded into the periphery as she focused on the dynamics of the room, observing the subtle shifts in posture, attention, and demeanor of those around her, a testament to the respect she now commanded without needing to assert it loudly. Alexander's quiet acknowledgment, a brief nod and an encouraging glance, reinforced the sense of shared purpose and the undeniable reality that Sophia was no longer a peripheral figure but a central force in the space, shaping perceptions and interactions within. Effortless grace. The chandeliers above refracted the ambient lighting, scattering delicate patterns across the polished floors, reflecting the movement of guests and the controlled elegance of Sophia's trajectory through the room, a visual metaphor for the balance she had achieved between influence and composure. She caught Ethan's gaze for a fleeting moment, reading the subtle tension and realization in his expression, and allowed herself a private moment of satisfaction, not in his discomfort, but in the profound understanding that she had redefined the narrative of her own life. Every step, every glance, every carefully measured phrase resonated with the cumulative weight of experience, resilience, and strategic intelligence, affirming that she was no longer defined by past circumstances, but by the presence, competence, and authority she had cultivated. As the evening continued, the undercurrent of expectation and admiration heightened, creating a charged atmosphere in which Sophia's every interaction, every acknowledgment, and every subtle gesture contributed to the unfolding story of recognition, influence, and the silent, unmistakable triumph of a woman who had claimed her rightful place. Sophia Reynolds drifted toward the edge of the ballroom, allowing herself a brief pause to absorb the unfolding energy around her, the soft golden illumination from the chandeliers catching the subtle shimmer of her emerald gown and casting gentle reflections across the polished marble floor. The ambient hum of conversation and laughter seemed to dim in the periphery, replaced by a focused awareness of the currents of attention now aligning with her presence. Alexander Blackwell remained at her side, his quiet confidence a steadying force, signaling both support and recognition of the influence she now wielded effortlessly. Guests approached with curiosity and respect, offering polite greetings and engaging in discussions that highlighted her expertise and accomplishments, each interaction reinforcing the authority and credibility she had cultivated over years of careful effort. Sophia's mind traced back over the meticulous planning, long nights, and strategic decisions that had rebuilt her career and personal life, a tapestry of resilience and intelligence that now manifested in her every gesture and expression. Ethan Carter lingered at the far side of the room, the tension in his posture unmissable, a reflection of the surprise and disquiet sparked by witnessing the woman he had once underestimated thriving with such poise and confidence. Sophia allowed herself a calm, measured smile, knowing it carried the weight of past struggles and the unspoken triumph of her current presence. Each movement, each carefully chosen word, radiated authority and self-possession, the soft cadence of her voice commanding attention without needing to raise its volume. The fragrance of polished wood, subtle florals, and the faint tang of fine champagne wove through the room, creating an atmosphere that seemed to bend around her, emphasizing the quiet magnetism she now embodied. Alexander exchanged a brief, approving glance, a silent confirmation that their alliance and shared vision were fully realized and recognized within the social fabric of the gala. Sophia engaged with a group of patrons, her tone articulate, her demeanor warm yet undeniably assured, each interaction layering another subtle mark of respect and admiration upon the foundation she had built. Observing the room, noting the shifts in posture, the involuntary glances, and the softening of expressions around her, Sophia felt the culmination of years of persistence, strategy, and quiet strength. Every gesture, every word, every glance was part of the tapestry of her presence, projecting the resonance of someone who had not merely survived her past, but had transformed it into a source of power and elegance. The golden light reflected across the room and mingled with the delicate sounds of conversation and crystal, highlighting the contrast between the static confidence of Ethan and the dynamic command Sophia now exuded. As she moved toward the center once more, the anticipation in the air was palpable, the subtle acknowledgment of her achievements rippling through the guests, signaling the quiet, undeniable triumph of a woman who had claimed her place not through confrontation, but through the measured, graceful assertion of her worth and influence, setting the stage for the revelations and interactions that were about to unfold in ways that would leave a lasting impression on all who witnessed her presence. Sophia Reynolds felt the subtle shift in energy as the evening progressed, the soft glow of the chandeliers casting delicate reflections on the marble floor, illuminating the emerald fabric of her gown and the poised elegance of her stance. Alexander Blackwell moved with quiet precision beside her, a reassuring presence, his calm authority amplifying the confidence she carried with effortless grace. The guests, immersed in conversations and laughter, found themselves drawn to her, captivated by the combination of warmth, intelligence, and the undeniable aura of someone who had overcome the weight of past trials. Each interaction Sophia navigated was deliberate, every gesture and phrase calculated with subtlety, demonstrating not just charm, but the measured strength of experience and the quiet power of resilience. She exchanged polite conversation with a group of patrons, her voice calm, measured, yet infused with an understated charisma that commanded attention without raising its volume. Ethan Carter lingered at the edge of the room, unable to look away, attention coiled in his posture as he observed Sophia fully inhabiting the role of her new self, the woman he had underestimated now unmistakably present and radiant. Her mind traced the journey that had brought her here, the long hours of planning gallery openings, building relationships, cultivating influence, and meticulously shaping her own narrative, each memory reinforcing the legitimacy of her authority and the grace with which she now moved through the room. The soft hum of conversation, the delicate clinking of crystal glasses, and the ambient warmth of the lighting created a backdrop against which Sophia's presence resonated with clarity and impact, subtly commanding the attention of those around her. Alexander's glance, brief yet filled with affirmation, reminded her of the mutual respect and understanding they shared, the silent acknowledgment of a partnership rooted in trust, strategy, and shared vision. Sophia allowed herself a moment to observe Ethan, noting the subtle tension in his jaw, the fleeting uncertainty in his eyes, and the quiet recognition of her transformation, yet she did not dwell on it. Her focus remained on the present, on the interactions unfolding before her, and the influence she now wielded with effortless composure. Every carefully considered step, every measured word, every subtle smile was part of the language of presence she had mastered, a testament to the resilience and intelligence that had guided her journey from doubt to self-assurance. As she moved toward a group of influential art collectors, the soft echo of her heels punctuated the space, a rhythm that mirrored the cadence of her thoughts, steady and deliberate, resonating with the quiet authority she exuded. The room seemed to bend around her presence, conversations subtly shifting, attention naturally orienting toward her, creating an atmosphere charged with anticipation and admiration. In this moment, Sophia understood that her journey, her achievements, and her composure had coalesced into a force that was as undeniable as it was silent, a presence that commanded respect, recognition, and quiet awe, setting the stage for the interactions and revelations that would follow, leaving a lasting impression on every witness in the room. Sophia Reynolds moved toward the balcony overlooking the city skyline, the soft golden light of the chandeliers mixing with the distant glow of streetlights, casting a layered tapestry of illumination across the marble floors and reflecting the delicate shimmer of her emerald gown. Alexander Blackwell walked beside her, his presence calm and steady, a quiet signal of support that needed no words, amplifying the sense of poise and authority she exuded with every step. Guests turned subtly as they passed, their glances lingering with a mixture of admiration and curiosity, drawn to the effortless combination of intelligence, grace, and quiet command that Sophia now embodied. She paused to exchange a few words with a group of influential collectors, her voice measured and articulate, carrying warmth, confidence, and a subtle assertion of the expertise she had honed through years of deliberate effort and resilience. Each nod, each attentive look from those around her, was a silent acknowledgment of the presence she had cultivated, a presence forged from perseverance, strategy, and the reclamation of her narrative. Ethan Carter remained in the distance, the lines of tension in his shoulders and the hesitation in his gaze betraying the recognition of a transformation he could not ignore. A woman he had once underestimated now thriving in a space he had presumed she would never command. Sophia's mind traced back over the nights spent planning gallery openings, building relationships, and refining her vision. The quiet accumulation of effort now visible in her posture, her gestures, and the way conversations shifted subtly in her favor. The soft hum of the gala, punctuated by the gentle clinking of crystal and the muted murmur of conversation, framed her every movement, enhancing the impression of control and mastery she projected. Alexander offered a subtle glance of affirmation, a silent nod that acknowledged the seamless execution of her presence and the respect it commanded, reinforcing the dynamic balance of their partnership. Sophia allowed herself a fleeting smile, aware of the impact her composure and authority had on the room, a private recognition that she had transformed her history of doubt and challenge into a tangible, commanding influence. The chandeliers above fractured light across the space, creating a pattern of movement that echoed the rhythm of her steps and the cadence of her carefully measured speech, accentuating the subtle power of presence over spectacle. Every gesture, every interaction, every quiet laugh was a statement of achievement and self-possession, the culmination of years spent navigating setbacks, overcoming limitations, and reclaiming the agency that had once been denied. As she paused to observe the reactions of the crowd, noting the involuntary attention and the discreet respect in their expressions, Sophia understood the magnitude of her journey, the resonance of her authority, and the quiet triumph of a woman whose presence was now undeniable, setting the stage for the final unfolding of recognition, respect, and acknowledgment that would leave an indelible impression on all who witnessed her command of the room. Sophia Reynolds allowed herself a brief moment near the grand piano, the soft glow of the chandeliers casting a warm golden light across the polished marble and the delicate shimmer of her emerald gown, illuminating the composed elegance she now embodied. Alexander Blackwell remained at her side, his presence a steadying force, a quiet signal of partnership and confidence that reinforced the authority she exuded effortlessly. The murmurs of the gala faded into a subtle background, the soft clinking of crystal glasses and muted conversation forming an understated soundtrack to the focused awareness that Sophia carried as she navigated the room. Guests were drawn to her without conscious effort, their attention subtly aligning with the quiet magnetism and assurance she projected, a presence born of resilience, intelligence, and the reclamation of agency once denied. Each interaction was deliberate and measured, every gesture and carefully chosen phrase a testament to the experience, patience, and foresight that had shaped her journey. Ethan Carter lingered at the edge of the ballroom, his posture rigid, a faint tension betraying the recognition of a transformation he could not have anticipated, a woman he once underestimated now radiant and commanding. Sophia's thoughts traced the long hours spent cultivating relationships, planning exhibitions, and refining her expertise, the unseen scaffolding of her achievements now fully visible in the way she carried herself and engaged with those around her. Alexander offered a subtle, approving glance, a quiet affirmation of the synergy and mutual respect that underpinned their collaboration, signaling the seamless alignment of personal and professional strength. Sophia allowed a fleeting, composed smile, acknowledging not only her own growth but the attention and respect her presence had naturally drawn, a reflection of the subtle authority she had cultivated without resorting to spectacle or confrontation. The interplay of light across the room, the ambient warmth, and the soft echo of conversations enhanced the sense of depth and dimension, emphasizing the contrast between Ethan's tense uncertainty and Sophia's poised command. Every step, every measured gesture, every polite yet assured conversation resonated with the quiet triumph of a woman who had rebuilt her narrative and reclaimed her space, projecting influence and respect with effortless sophistication. as she moved through the crowd, observing subtle shifts in attention and the discreet recognition of her accomplishments. Sophia understood the magnitude of her presence and the resonance of the journey that had brought her here, each moment reinforcing the undeniable impact of a woman who had transformed past adversity into strength, setting the stage for the revelations, acknowledgments, and subtle shifts in perception that were yet to unfold before the attentive and admiring audience surrounding her. Sophia Reynolds felt the subtle rhythm of the evening shift as she approached the center of the ballroom, the light from the chandeliers refracting across the polished marble floor and illuminating the rich emerald of her gown, accentuating the confidence and poise she now carried. Alexander Blackwell moved alongside her with effortless grace, his quiet presence reinforcing the partnership and shared understanding that had guided them through countless decisions and calculated strategies, a silent testament to the synergy that defined their professional and personal alignment. Conversations flowed around them, the murmur of polite discourse and soft laughter creating a backdrop to the focused awareness Sophia maintained, every glance and gesture carefully measured to project authority and composure without the need for ostentation. Guests approached with subtle admiration, drawn to the calm assurance and understated power she radiated, her voice articulate, measured, and warm as she engaged with collectors, patrons, and influential figures, each interaction a testament to the careful cultivation of her reputation and influence. Ethan Carter lingered in the distance, his posture taut with suppressed surprise and a lingering awareness that the woman he had underestimated had become something entirely beyond his previous comprehension, her presence commanding attention effortlessly while he remained a spectator to her resurgence. Sophia allowed a brief, serene smile, acknowledging the subtle recognition of her achievements and the respect now accorded to her without overt display, the quiet power of presence speaking more profoundly than any declaration. Her thoughts traced the hours spent rebuilding her gallery, establishing relationships, and honing her expertise, each challenge transformed into a lesson that fortified her resolve, creating an invisible yet palpable architecture of competence and influence that now shaped the social currents around her. The ambient music, the soft clinking of crystal glasses, and the warm fragrance of the room formed a harmonious backdrop to her movements, highlighting the contrast between her composed mastery and Ethan's visible tension, the quiet command she projected permeating every interaction and glance. Alexander's subtle nod of acknowledgment reinforced the unspoken balance and trust between them, a recognition that the presence and authority Sophia exuded were shared and respected, amplifying the effect she had on the room. Each gesture, each carefully chosen word, each smile and exchange carried the weight of years spent navigating setbacks, learning, and emerging stronger, the culmination of perseverance, intelligence, and self-possession now fully visible and undeniable. The chandeliers scattered light into delicate patterns across the floor, mirroring the fluidity and precision of her steps and the measured cadence of her speech, further emphasizing the elegance and quiet dominance of her presence. As she paused to observe the subtle shifts in attention, the involuntary acknowledgment of her stature, and the soft admiration that threaded through the guests, Sophia understood the impact of her journey, the resonance of her authority, and the silent triumph of a woman who had transformed adversity into power, setting the stage for the unfolding recognition, the recalibration of perception, and the unspoken acknowledgment of her rightful place among those who had once doubted her. Sophia Reynolds stepped into the grand hall where the gala had reached its peak, the chandeliers casting prismatic reflections that danced across the polished marble and illuminated the subtle shimmer of her emerald gown. Alexander Blackwell remained close, a steadying presence, exuding a quiet authority that complemented her own, amplifying the effect of her poised confidence without overshadowing it. The soft hum of conversation and the gentle clink of glasses formed a subtle backdrop, yet the air seemed charged with attention, each subtle shift in focus directed toward Sophia as she moved through the room with the ease and grace of someone fully in command of her space. Guests greeted her with nods and warm acknowledgments, their subtle gestures of respect highlighting the presence she had cultivated through years of perseverance, strategy, and refinement of her skills and social awareness. Ethan Carter stood near the edge of the ballroom, the tension in his posture unmistakable, a reflection of disbelief and the quiet realization that the woman before him was no longer the person he had once tried to control or diminish. Sophia allowed herself a calm, measured smile, serene yet powerful, acknowledging the subtle recognition of her accomplishments without needing to assert it overtly, her confidence radiating in the precise cadence of her voice, the graceful alignment of her gestures, and the poise of every movement. She recalled the countless nights spent meticulously planning exhibitions, nurturing client relationships, and cultivating her expertise, each experience a foundational brick in the authority she now embodied, a presence that required no proclamation because it resonated through her interactions naturally and unmistakably. Alexander's discreet nod reinforced the balance of their collaboration, a quiet affirmation that the influence and recognition Sophia commanded were shared and respected, the subtle energy between them a testament to the synergy and strategic alignment they had built together. As she engaged in conversation with a prominent collector, her tone was articulate, thoughtful, and assured, carrying the weight of expertise and experience, and every reaction she received, polite smiles, attentive listening, and subtle gestures of deference, served to reinforce the impact of her presence. The interplay of light, sound, and movement throughout the room accentuated her control over the atmosphere, the ambient glow and gentle acoustics framing her as a figure of both elegance and influence. Each interaction, each step, and each careful exchange of words reflected the quiet triumph of a woman who had transformed the challenges of her past into the strength and sophistication she now embodied, her presence commanding attention, respect, and admiration. The subtle shifts in the crowd, the attentive gazes, and the soft acknowledgment of her achievements created an almost tangible resonance of authority, emphasizing the contrast between her poised confidence and Ethan's constrained uncertainty. In this charged atmosphere, Sophia understood the magnitude of her journey, the clarity of her regained autonomy, and the enduring impact of her presence, setting the stage for the culminating moments of recognition, revelation, and the unspoken acknowledgment of the woman she had become. Sophia Reynolds stood near the center of the ballroom, the warm light from the chandeliers reflecting off the marble floors and glinting across her emerald gown, emphasizing the composed elegance and quiet authority she now embodied. Alexander Blackwell remained at her side, a steady presence that reinforced her confidence and the subtle power of their partnership, his quiet acknowledgment of her presence amplifying the influence she commanded without a word. The soft murmur of conversations, the gentle clinking of crystal, and the distant notes of the piano created an ambient rhythm that framed her movements, each step measured, deliberate, and full of the poise cultivated through years of experience and perseverance. Guests were drawn to her with subtle attentiveness, nodding politely, listening intently, and engaging with the warmth and confidence that radiated from her, a natural testament to her restored authority and the reputation she had painstakingly built. Ethan Carter remained at the edge of the room, his posture stiff, his eyes reflecting surprise and the faintest trace of disbelief, as he took in the transformation of the woman he had once underestimated, now commanding attention with effortless grace and intelligence. Sophia's mind traced the journey that had brought her to this point, the countless nights planning gallery openings, nurturing professional relationships, refining her expertise, and building a personal presence rooted in resilience and strategic foresight. Alexander's subtle nod provided reassurance, a silent signal of the shared understanding and trust that had guided their collaboration, highlighting the seamless alignment of influence, competence, and mutual respect between them. Sophia allowed a serene smile to touch her lips, calm yet undeniably powerful, acknowledging the impact she had made in the room without needing to assert it overtly, letting her presence alone convey the authority and self-possession she had cultivated. The interplay of light, movement, and ambient sound accentuated the contrast between her composed confidence and Ethan's constrained tension, emphasizing the quiet dominance she now held in every interaction and glance. Each gesture, each measured phrase, and every subtle expression conveyed a narrative of accomplishment, resilience, and sophistication, illustrating the results of her dedication, intelligence, and unwavering determination. As she moved toward a group of patrons, the reflective light from the chandeliers traced her path, the polished marble floors echoing softly under her heels, creating a visual cadence that mirrored the steady rhythm of her thoughts and decisions. Observing the reactions around her, the subtle shifts in attention and the discreet acknowledgment of her achievements, Sophia felt the culmination of her journey, the resonance of her regained authority, and the quiet triumph of a woman who had turned adversity into strength. The room seemed to align. Around her presence, conversations adjusting, glances lingering, and the ambient energy affirming her rightful place, leaving an indelible impression that silently, yet unmistakably signaled the respect, recognition, and influence she now held, setting the stage for the final moments of acknowledgment and the lingering admiration of everyone who had witnessed the unfolding of her poise, capability, and unspoken power. Sophia Reynolds stood at the center of the ballroom, the ambient light from the chandeliers refracting into golden prisms that danced across the polished marble and highlighted the subtle shimmer of her emerald gown. Alexander Blackwell remained at her side, a quiet and unwavering presence, signaling both support and acknowledgment of the authority she now embodied. The murmurs of the gala, the soft clink of crystal, and the gentle hum of conversation provided a backdrop to the commanding aura she projected, each step deliberate, each gesture measured, exuding a quiet confidence cultivated through years of resilience and perseverance. Guests turned their attention toward her, drawn not by spectacle, but by the natural magnetism of a woman fully inhabiting her strength and accomplishments, her voice clear and articulate as she engaged with collectors, patrons, and prominent figures with warmth, poise, and undeniable authority. Ethan Carter remained at the periphery, his posture stiff, eyes reflecting disbelief and the recognition that the woman before him had transcended the limitations and doubts he had once imposed, her presence asserting a reality that he could neither control nor diminish. Sophia allowed herself a serene smile, acknowledging the subtle respect and attention that she now commanded without the need for words, every interaction reinforcing the influence and credibility she had painstakingly cultivated. Alexander offered a subtle nod of approval, reinforcing the synergy of their partnership, a silent testament to the alignment of trust, vision, and shared purpose that now underscored her presence. Memories of long nights spent planning gallery openings, cultivating client relationships, refining her expertise, and nurturing a vision that once seemed distant surfaced, each memory a reminder of the effort and strategy that had constructed the foundation of her current authority. The ambient light reflected off the crystal and marble, creating patterns that echoed the rhythm of her measured steps and the cadence of her speech, accentuating the contrast between her composed confidence and Ethan's constrained tension. Every carefully executed smile, every nuanced gesture, every deliberate phrase carried the weight of experience and mastery, silently, conveying the depth of her transformation and the reclamation of her narrative. The soft murmur of the room, the attentiveness of those she engaged with, and the subtle acknowledgment of her presence reinforced the quiet triumph of a woman who had turned adversity into power, who now moved through the gala not as a spectator of her own life, but as the architect of influence and respect. Sophia's gaze swept the room, registering the shifts in attention, the discreet admiration, and the recognition that she was now seen, fully and undeniably, by all who had once underestimated her. And in that moment, every challenge, every setback, and every sacrifice coalesced into a single, unspoken declaration of her resilience, authority, and unassailable presence, leaving the room enveloped in the resonance of her quiet, lasting triumph.